Good evening. Please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance. Good evening. This marks our fourth virtual meeting. At our first virtual meeting during this quarantine, I spoke about how, during our country's history, whenever we face a crisis, leaders rise to the occasion, restore our hope, and demonstrate true empathy. This past week, we witnessed that happening right here in South Huntington, as Walt Whitman Principal John Murphy and his leadership team, over the course of 4 days, accompanied by the Huntington Manor Fire Department, personally visited each of our graduating seniors, all 476. At each house, Mr. Murphy dropped off a congratulatory sign for display on the students' lawn. But Mr. Murphy delivered far more than a plastic lawn sign. He delivered hope for a return to normalcy. He also delivered a reminder that he cares deeply about every single student in the high school and their well-being. And he delivered on a promise that I made in last week's board meeting, that we would find new and different, but nonetheless very meaningful ways to recognize an extraordinary graduating class. These thoughtful acts have reverberated throughout our district and have once again demonstrated the importance of schools to a community and the great spirit of the South Huntington School District. I want to thank Mr. Murphy, his staff, and the Huntington Manor Fire Department for this uplifting event. Be well. With that said, we transition into our budget adoption presentation. Under normal circumstances, we would be actually voting on the budget tomorrow, but as I mentioned at our last meeting, we had to revise the calendar. So today is our budget adoption presentation, and the board will vote later on whether to adopt the budget or not. The next relevant date on the calendar will be June 1st, in which we present the public hearing of the budget, followed by June 9th, in which the vote is actually conducted, this time by all absentee ballot. As Dr. Bernardo spoke about last time, we were waiting for important state aid information, which we had expected to receive by the end of last week. We have not received that yet, so we're kind of moving forward with blinders on today, doing the best that we can without very relevant information. But we must proceed nonetheless, as we're at the deadline to adopt our budget. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Dr. Bernardo and his team.
Good evening. Thank you all for joining us, both in person and virtually this evening. And I hope, most importantly, that you and your families are well. Those words seem to mean a great deal more these days. They used to be a simple greeting, but they mean a great deal more during this tough time. So welcome. We have a unique task tonight, and as Mr. Chiappetta mentioned, the task is to present a budget. It has to be adopted. That's just the way the laws work. And then it has to be presented to the public. And you don't really have an opportunity to say, well, we didn't get the state numbers yet. So that's a very important understanding. It's different. First time it's been like this in the 33 years I've been in the profession. And let me explain how we move forward. Essentially, typically, we receive state aid numbers. We receive the first batch of state aid numbers the third week in January. Those are what's called the executive proposal. Executive in our state is the governor. And whoever that governor may be, it happens whoever the governor is. It's just a process. And the first number comes. That's usually what they call a floor or basement. In other words, he or she mentions a certain amount of state aid that they plan to give to individual school districts. And then what happens is school districts talk to their local assemblymen and senators, and they show them their needs, and the assemblymen and senators go back to the governor's people. And they say, look, it's not enough for Selwyn, it's not enough for Syosset, it's not enough for Harvard Hills, whatever school it is. We need more for this reason, the state programs, and they get that number up a little bit for us. And they trade whatever they trade politically for that, but that usually is our issue. And then we get this final number, right about middle of March, and we make a budget, It'll be presented to you in middle of April, and then it's voted on in the middle of May. What happened in this case is the governor has not given us those numbers. The governor's intention is that he can't give us those numbers because he doesn't know what will or will not be in the state treasury. So for the first time in decades, the governor and his people, I'll use the term governor generally, but his people have the legal authority to change state aid that's promised all the way up until December 30th of this year. So we're going to make a budget. We're going to adopt it tonight. Hopefully we'll pass it on June 9th. And whatever we vote on, we could get a different amount of state aid. Certainly it's not going to go up, but we could get less state aid. We would then have to, middle of the year, middle of the month, we would have to make a financial adjustment and make ends meet. That responsibility is on us. So we're going to present tonight our best guess. We then are going to leave here, and if the board adopts a budget, Ms. McLean's going to rush it to the printer, and the printer then has about 3-4 days to turn these ballots around and mail 28,000 ballots home to each of our residents, because instead of coming to the polls this year, we have to mail a ballot with a self-addressed envelope back out to 28,000 residents. So that's the process. Those ballots then come back to us by posted and marked and returned by June 9th, and we then count the 28,000 ballots or whatever number we get. So that's the process. And tonight, how did we do this? Well, we did not have state aid numbers to go by. So what we did was we looked through 30 years of state aid history, and we tried to parse the various statements that have been coming out of Albany about state aid from the legislator and the governor. And most school districts pick somewhere between a 5% and a 25 to 30% reduction in state aid. That's what we expect will take place in the districts. It'll be a lot less if there's a successful bill out of Congress and signed by the president to backfill state treasuries, put back into state treasuries for what's been lost. And it'll be a lot more of a cut if that bill either A, never takes place, or B, isn't something that backfills the treasury. So a large portion of our existence is now based upon the different houses of Congress and the president's ability to reconcile a bill, it's called, to come together on an idea, and we'll know more when the time comes. So until then, we picked a number in the middle. What we did was, we didn't do as low as 0 because we do expect some cut. We didn't do as high as 25% because we're a little more optimistic than that. So we picked 10% of foundation, 10% of that number. In our case, it means we cut, since we last chatted about the budget in March, we cut $2.1 million out of the budget, and then you'll see, and then a little bit more, and I'll explain why. So that's the first thing. I want you to keep that number in your head as we go along. We were able to do that without an appreciable change in services to the community, staff, our programs. And the way we were able to do it was applying savings from the shutdown. We have a certain amount of savings from the shutdown. And let me show that to you right now. If you take a look at the first slide on the screen, and I need you to we need to really look at this slide because this has been our ability to exist. That's the $6 million I'm talking about right now. Basically, we brought in the Rocky Smith, our auditors, and we put them in a room and we said, come out in a week and tell us as close as you can to what we've saved, what we will save by June 30th based on being closed. Transportation fees, officials at ball games, proctors for exams that never happened. What will we save? And so when the Rocky Smith came out, they told us that we will save by June 30th about $6 million, give or take 500,000, but around $6 million. So that's the number we put, in our head. The first use of that money was, if you remember, when we met in January, we talked about the governor giving us, in his proposal, $600,000 more state aid, and the legislature typically getting us $300,000 more. So we built a budget with that $900,000 promised and expected increase. That was officially taking place. So in other words, that's not what we think might happen, but that $900,000 came out of our budget about 3 weeks ago. So I asked Vito, Joe, and April, I asked them to go into our budget for next year and to take $900,000 of that $6 million and to purchase things that we plan to purchase next year, but with the savings now. So, you know, we went through items, all kinds of items, be them, you know, something as simple as rock salt for a storm, the math textbook series, some initial Chromebooks, a whole thing. We had a boiler, we had to place things like that. We'll talk about those. But we put $900,000 worth of those things now with that $6 million, so we could lower the budget for next year by $900,000. So that was the first step. That made us even. Left us with $5.1 million in savings, but left us even so we didn't have to cut people or programs for next year. We then picked that 10% foundation aid number. Could be more, could be less. I'm praying it's a lot less, but that meant we had to cut another $2.1 million for the budget. So we went in and we found another, they went in, and they found another $2.1 million of things that we could spend down. In other words, things we had to get next year. Security things. We had to get them anyway. We were going to buy them with state aid money next year. State aid money wasn't coming, so we used this year's $6 million savings to buy another $2.1 million of things. Joe, you want to talk about one or two of the things that we would typically, and Vito can jump in and purchase up front?
Sure. So we took the opportunity to look at needs in our library, needs with our literacy, English department. You referenced the math series, science materials. We wanted to supplement our Chromebooks, and then obviously, you know, the current virtual reality, and just to be prepared should that continue in some way, shape, or form, to be very aggressive in terms of Chromebooks, devices at the elementary level.
So, thank you, Joe. So what you see is right now, and they would be purchased anyway. In other words, those were things included in next year's budget before the pandemic hit. Makes sense? So we totally then, between the $900,000 and $2.1 million, used $3 million of the savings from being closed to lower next year's budget and to increase our ability to survive. So that left us with $3 million left of that savings. We then came across the very real possibility that we may need Chromebooks again at the K-5 level. I pray to God it's not in September, but we certainly found that we can't be again without a one-to-one connection for every elementary student. We just can't do it. So we took another $1.1 million of the savings to make sure we are not in the Chromebook situation where our K-5 students are without Chromebooks. And that, because right now only our 6 through 12 work. As of next year, we'll be able to do everyone. So that left us at $4.1 million spent money. We then had a Maplewood boiler, just happened. Boiler went, we have to replace it. Boilers only make a difference when it's cold, and those times will come next winter. So we spent $400,000 of the savings on that. And we took the last, so basically we've purchased down, that would have had to be in next year's budget as well. We've purchased down $4.5 million worth of budget material to make ends meet next year. And then the final thing is we took $1.5 million, and with the board's blessing, we would put $500,000 of it in unemployment insurance reserve. We know that that's going to be a reserve that's just whacked the next year or two, and we have to meet those obligations, so if they don't give us an option. And $1 million in pension reserve. The pension numbers are clearly going to spike in the coming year because it's tied to the stock market, and our fear was leaving this district to the point where those things weren't at least thought about to some degree, to the tune of $1.5 million next year. We didn't want to kick the can down the road so far, and you all as a community and you as a board being left with no ability to meet those obligations next year. So that's how the $6 million was applied, and that's how we were able to come to you tonight, making what it amounts to about $3 million worth of cuts without any change in personnel appointment.
Good evening, everybody. Our state aid reality, you can see where we were in January. Seems like eons ago that we were basically at over 38 million, and to see where we are right now, we're working with a budget of 35.5 million. So we're looking at that almost $3 million cut there. On the next slide, you can see the percentage of state aid as part of our budget. You can see on the percentage side at 20.36, it's basically in line with basically 5 years ago where we were at 20.41, and our total amount of budgeted state aid in 2021 is in line with basically 2017-18 at about 35 million. So it's kind of needle heading in the wrong direction, but as Dr. Bernardo explained, we're doing whatever we can to make this work, and but hopefully we can start moving in the other direction. Also, just here is our tax levy for the 2021 year at 2.33%, with basically a little over $120 million. Our state aid, as I mentioned on the previous slide, about 35.5. And as Dr. Bonanno mentioned again earlier about, there's a couple of other opportunities that the state aid could be reduced throughout this calendar year.
With regards to the use of fund balance, we originally, when this process started, recommended the allocation of $4.3 million in applied fund balance. As a result of the anticipated aid reductions by the state, we're now recommending the allocation of $5.1 million in fund balance. Basically, fund balance of the funds that are unused at the end of each fiscal year that get carried over into the subsequent year. You hope that you don't have to use it, and then you just continue to carry over set amounts. But at least it's there should there be any kind of unanticipated costs or emergencies. In terms of the use of reserves, for a few years now, the district has been applying reserves. We've been very prudent with that application of reserves. Our goal is, as often as possible to replenish that use, and certainly in the years to come to try to reduce that dependency. Reserves are another form of savings, but they have certain designations. There are several reserve categories. The ones that we'll be using funds from for the 2020-21 budget are the MLR, which stands for Employee Benefits Accrued Liability Reserve, for things such as the Employee Terminal Leave, ERS, which is a pension reserve, and workers' comp. And that totality of $3.75 million is the recommended application of reserve funding for next year. The next year, with regards to curriculum, instruction, and technology, we are going to continue with the rollout of our new amplified science curriculum at the elementary level. We're also very excited. We've recently adopted as a district a new elementary math curriculum, and we will begin that rollout with Ready Math. In terms of technology, I referenced earlier how we'll be supplementing our secondary one-to-one Chromebook initiative. Next year will be the first year for our seniors, so we will be fully one-to-one 6 through 12. And an important notation, to reiterate the slide that Dr. Bernardo did, was that in light of the current virtual learning situation, and just so we are ready, should there be any continuation in some form in the future, we are right now purchasing Chromebooks for K-5, even UPK-5. And in an ideal world, those Chromebooks would stay in the classroom. However, we'll have them, and should we be in a virtual learning scenario, we will be able to provide them to our students and their family. As we look at our projections for class sizes, and we start with the elementary level, we'll see some very nice consistency at the primary level, K through 2, as well as the intermediate level, 3 through 5. These class sizes are certainly very desirable and do provide flexibility. As we segue into our 6th grade center at SILAS Wood, you'll see that same consistency as you saw at the intermediate level with those class sizes as well. As we move forward into the secondary level, we'll start out with STIMSON Middle School, grades 7 and 8. What you now begin to see at the secondary level is sometimes you have what's called a singleton or a doubleton, where maybe you have 1 or 2 sections on a certain course. It could be because it's an honors course, or if it's a high school, it could be an AP course. And certainly some of your larger performing groups, such as music, you might see a little bit higher of a class size. And that's what you're looking at now in terms of right now on this side, grade 7. And then as we switch into grade 8, you'll see a good consistency from grade 7. And if you change to the next slide, grade 8, go back one, it's grade 8. Okay, thank you. And now as we segue into Walt Whitman High School, grades 9 through 12, you'll see that same consistency, very nice class sizes, and sometimes if you have a singleton or a performing group, you'll see a little bit more class size there. However, we're in good shape. The high school is certainly going to have a pretty robust population, and they're under great leadership there with Mr. Murphy and his team.
Keeping in line with our transportation fleet, we try to keep it fresh each year, and this year, for 2021, we plan on purchasing 3 minivans, and they roughly cost $55,000 each, so we're targeting for $165,000 to add 3 minivans.
What did we budget on transportation for next year? Did we budget the same as this year's budget, or?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
$7.4 million.
And when do does RFPs come in?
They come in Wednesday, but we have a 48-hour window, so they'll be open on Friday. And we've been getting a lot of questions, and we believe we'll have multiple offers. Based on all the questions they're asking, so I think it was a good sign.
We don't know if the does it.
Okay, facilities. We have a dynamic facilities committee here in South Huntington, and working hard and diligently on projects this year and moving into next year. Some of the projects we're looking at, transfer to Capital One, Walt Whitman High School form renovation, STIMSON Middle School, where we purchased a house a few years ago. We're looking to expand that parking lot, the PAC entranceway, and also some minor renovations here for our help students that are coming here from the Teen Center. Also, the board has been working very closely with EPC. We're basically at the final stages right now. The EPC is basically in our attorney's hands to take a look at it and make sure they're dotting their I's, crossing their T's. So we should have that very shortly for the board's approval. And we're excited about all the things it will bring to South Huntington when you talk about solar arrays and lighting and cost savings. It will be very advantageous to our community. Okay, I know the next slide has a lot of numbers, so I'm just going to go to a few different points, and as you know, that we will be putting this presentation up on the website. But a few things I want to look at right away. First off, we are tax cap compliant. We're within the tax cap. Also, our state aid, as we've been talking about earlier, has been reduced, so that's the number we're working with, the $35.5 million. But a very, very important number, they all are, but really important is the bottom right corner, a budget-to-budget increase of 0.75%. So it took a lot of work to get to that place and keep what we have. So we're really proud of that. Okay, I remember sitting out in the audience watching Dr. Bernardo go over this slide as eloquently as well as he did. So I'm going to try and take a piece of what I've learned in this new position here. And as I said, this will be up on the website. What happens is when we talk about the estimated tax rate, we looked at the assessed valuation of homes, and we factor in about $250,000 a year of depreciation. And what basically that means is when you grieve your taxes, your assessed valuation of your home, if you're successful with your grievance, your assessed value comes down a bit. And what happens is if you owe, for example, $1,000, if you're reduced by $1,000, the rest of the community basically has to pay that $1,000. So the way we factored in, we went with, we feel the sweet spot is about $250,000. Hopefully we'll come in a little less, but in the event that it does come a little more, then the board would have to make a decision to possibly use some funds. But we're hoping it's under that $250,000. And the next slide basically is just a graph of the assessed valuation coming down. As I explained with grievances, that's why it comes down.
So we get to some bottom line numbers now as the presentation draws into that where the rubber hits the road moment, right? And so the budget you see there, the 2021 budget of 174, 657, 264, that is considerably lower than the budget number we proposed to the board. We started mentioning to the board 2 months ago, because since then we've lost between $2 and $3 million worth of state aid. So we brought that number down, and I think it's important to say that right now, that's what we hope to be able to go with, depending on any more changes in state aid. Coming all the way to the right, like Vito said, we're under 1% in a budget-to-budget increase. The reason that I bring this up is we were very lucky also in that we did have 4 elementary teacher retirements, and the class size numbers didn't require replacing those 4 people, so we were able to garner 4 savings and positions there without negatively impacting class size. 4 pretty much definitely, which when you can do a win-win is going to be the district's goal going forward with everything. So that's a good place to be. So we're under that 1% budget. We want to keep it that way. Now, I will tell you that, how to put this best, we're out of tricks after this. And I don't mean anything as a trick, I mean that more in terms of creativity. We were able to do $3 million worth of purchases for next year going into the budget. And Vito and Joe kept coming back, and I kept saying a little more, and we were able to get to that $3 million number, and that's great. After this number, that's the $3 million worth of things we're able to go into next year and purchase. So the next thing would require a change in N plus the 4, not replacing the 4 teachers. So that the next thing would require some changes in our ability to do so. We hope not to get there. There is something that's critical to look at, and this is something that used to become part of districts, that was part of districts' repertoire before the tax cap era, where they get up and talk about a contingency budget clause. Since the tax cap, what we've learned in a non-pandemic world, if you tax cap compliant, the budgets have been passed in 99.6 or 7% of the time, and so districts kind of went away from what does a contingency budget mean. And I've lived under one. I was principal, not here, thank goodness. I was principal my first year. I inherited a contingency, or say the word, failed budget scenario as a high school principal. So it was kind of interesting to see. What that means is the tax cap money that we have asked you for, and we know it's an ask. We know during a tough time it's an ask. The tax cap money that we've asked you for, if we go on contingency, we don't get it. And so in addition to not getting that 2.3% tax cap money, we would have to remove those millions of dollars from the budget. And there are certain things that the law says you just can't do if you're on contingency. And most people don't think about that, they just think about the lost money. And as a principal, I lived those. So for instance, if you were to fail a budget, if your community says no to a budget, no repairs or upgrades other than emergency can be done. So if you think it's a good idea to paint that wall, and the wall doesn't need it, you can't paint it. It gets that particular. No new equipment can be purchased. We can get a great deal on 7 new smart boards. No, you can't do it. It's just, in other words, your community has said, don't. So it's very important, and those are scrutinized at the state level. You can't give any supply that a student keeps. So, for instance, say they kept an agenda or a binder, you have to, on contingency, we actually had to have people pay for their agendas because you couldn't give them a supply they keep. No use of the school buildings if it requires custodial costs or anything, no use of the school buildings at all by outside groups. So things like that, trips, no use of student trips unless they pay for it all. So if you normally had a group of students go to Rochester for a competition, you can't do it unless the families fund the whole thing. So the reason I bring those things up to you is we've never had to do that before. And I think you know probably, if anything, I'm prone to say the sun is shining. And I know that sometimes I get razzled a little bit about that, about my calls and all that. They're always so optimistic. But it is my responsibility now to say that's what a contingency budget is. It's not a scare tactic, it just is what it is. So I want to share that with you. When these budgets come home and have to be returned by June 9th, that's what you're voting on.
April? Okay. So closing this presentation, we will remain focused on these goals for the 2021 school year. There's 3 goals that I'm going to highlight specifically. We will continue to strive for excellence. We will continue to provide the necessary resources and tools to support teaching and learning with our administrators, teachers, staff, and most importantly, our students. As Dr. Sendamore mentioned, we have applied school closure savings to purchase Chromebooks to ensure that students in grades K-5 have access to technology to continue learning virtually. Additionally, the rollout of Amplify and implementation of ReadyMap is moving full steam ahead for the upcoming school year. We will continue to enhance the safety of our facilities and maintenance of grounds. As Dr. D'Elia mentioned, we have applied closure savings to replace facility items and plan for capital improvements with use of transfer to capital funds. Lastly, and most importantly, maintaining fiscal sustainability. Although we have been faced with some budgetary unknowns during the course of the school year, our plan is still to remain diligent with using savings, reducing reserve reliance, and work within our anticipated state aid reality.
I wanted to come back as we close to the slide on the applied use of the $6 million in funds and savings, because I received a half dozen or so questions about that in the past week, and was really happy to explain to the people, because I think it shows an effort to to do the right thing by the people, and would love to get that message out to anyone who wants to hear it. So I won't list them all for you again. I know your time's precious, but just so you can see that there is a $6 million plan for every dollar saved, and we're trying not to squander a penny of it. We also are trying to wring the towel just a little bit more and see if we can get a few more dollars out of that. And we'll do that right up until the last minute of the last hour of the last day of this budget cycle. I promise you that, of this current year, because anything we can do to make next year a little bit better on our community, we will do. There is no reason to be gloomy in that we were able to do this $6 million move. If things were to kind of fall into place with state aid, if we were to come to this number. And look, if we don't get the $2 million cut, $2.1 million more, we already got the $900,000. We would happily be able to then put that away. A bunch of things we could do. Put that away for a rainy day. We could make a lot of recommendations to the Board of Education about enhanced instructional programs. So we would love that to be the case. We really would. And I have no crystal ball to say which way it will go. I don't want you to think that any of us have nobody has an edge on this. But you can see there we are able to hit that number. We have no reason to believe it'll be any worse than that. We're praying to God it isn't. And we'll continue to stay in touch. What we promise is every dollar we're able to save or garner, we'll share with you exactly what we do with it. We'll share with you any movements in terms of state aid numbers. We'll share with you any movements in terms of state aid requirements. And you'll be in the loop as soon as we know what you know. So I want you to know we'll be swinging the bat for you to make sure we do a good job on this.
So 2 important dates to note on your calendars. The next Board of Education meeting will be scheduled for June 1st, and that will be the public hearing of the budget. And as Mr. Ciafetta and Dr. Bernardo mentioned earlier on in the presentation, the annual budget vote will take place remotely. It means qualified voters will vote only by an absentee ballot. The ballots would be mailed either on or around May 28th. Voters will return their ballot with a postage paid return envelope on June 9th. Absentee ballots must be received by 5 p.m. 5 p.m., not 5:01, not 5:05. I'll even take it at 4:59.
Right, please.
And at the district clerk at James State Administrative Offices. Again, qualified voters will be provided with a postage paid return envelope to return their ballot by June 9th.
We're going to post this presentation on the website tomorrow morning. We're also going to push it out in a link to every home in the community. So anyone that wants to take a look at it who maybe wasn't able to join us tonight, they can watch the entire thing. They can watch pieces of it either on the website or on the push out link. And certainly love to chat via Zoom chat, any call with anyone who has any questions or wants to know how they can become involved.
Board, any questions?
Did I wear you out? I apologize.
I'd like to hear Mr. Joyner?
Thank you all.
Anything on campus yet, Dr.
No, we actually asked again today. We called our contact at Albany, and we're told that the governor is still. They're looking at the science to make a decision. So now we're kind of hoping that we have an answer. What the Shed is asking for the community is everything from our own camps to camps that lease the buildings to Town of Huntington that uses our buildings. Believe it or not, the summer school and 5 or 6 other things. We are waiting on all of those decisions. And the summer school decision itself, Mr. Shipetta, only gives us about 6 weeks to get ready for it if we do have it, and the camps in addition. So we are really hoping for a decision soon on those things because a lot of things hang in the balance, but not yet.
And it doesn't impact us budgetarily if it doesn't, none of those things happen.
To a large degree, there are a couple of things. That's a very good question. Like Camp W, for example, that is a substantial revenue to us that would be lost if we can't have camps, and our own camps as well.
So we come out net ahead.
We come out net ahead in all of our camps, yes, and summer school. And you know what happens is most districts don't like to do summer school because it's a lot of work. And we host the regional summer school because it's, first of all, it's good because our students can get there, and our obligations are students. And BOCES then lets us have it here. But we A, get to host our students, B, get to employ our staff, and C, make a few bucks. Not a lot, but make a few bucks. Camp W, all of our internal camps. The town, we pretty much have a wash relationship with everybody else. We have a revenue creating stream that we've tried to build very hard over the years. So we're certainly hoping we have them because that would be another hit.
Thank you. Anything else? All right. On to our budget. Sorry, to the regular business agenda. Motion. Yeah. Motion to adopt the agenda. Is very seconded by Mr. Bronson. It's nice. I can see people's hands here. Yeah, great. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Agenda is adopted. Items C through F require one resolution for adoption. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Joyner.
Aye.
And Mr. Bronson. Any questions on these things? These are the minutes, financial items, and the bills. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? C through F are adopted. Moving on to new business, the adoption of the 2020-2021 budget. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Joyner and Mr. Nikowitz. So this is a resolution, the most important we do of the year, to adopt the budget of $174,657,000, $657,264. And the resolution is that we adopt the budget and the amount thereof, less state aid and other income, be raised by tax upon taxable property in the South Lincoln Union Free School District, Town of Huntington, County of New York, County of Suffolk, New York, for the school year 2020-2021. Any questions on the budget? Comments? So this has been obviously a very challenging year, Dr. Durham, and you watch like those ninja shows. You've been the budget ninja. You've had to adjust on the fly constantly. Unfortunately, our adjusting is not done, but I give everyone here a lot of credit to have a 0.75 budget increase. That is very fiscally sound, and on a budget of $170-something million, that's very difficult to achieve. Usually, inertia would make it higher than that alone. So, thank you for your work on that. Board, have any questions?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Alright, so the budget is adopted. Item number 2 is a related budget agenda item. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Bronson and Mr. Joyner. This is the property tax report card. Dr. Arnold, anything further to add?
No, this is just, once we establish our property tax and know what we're going to recommend to the board and recommend to the public, which is largely set by formula, we have to report that to the state. And that's just this normal part of the process going forward.
Board, have any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, property tax report card is adopted. Item number 3 is the appointment of election officials. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Joyner and Mr. Nikowitz. Dr. Bernardo, this is to appoint budget officials. Sometimes we list them here. It's generally listed as employees of the district and a member of the audit committee to act in the capacity of election officials. We have an enormous challenge this year, one we haven't faced before. We have 25,000 ballots about to go out. We don't know how many we'll get back in return, but safe to say we could be looking at the most votes ever cast in the history of the South Huntington School District. We have to only get more than 5,000 to do so. So that could be a safe bet. So we're going to have to do a lot of hand counting. It's going to be an arduous task.
Absolutely, and these people have to qualify through the process, have to receive a certain amount of indoctrination and training from our district clerk, and then have to be willing to come in and be on site. This can't be done virtually. So it's something that we're working on now. We want to be ready for whatever number of votes we get. Our responsibility is to be ready, whatever that might be.
Define, you ready? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And number 4 is the approval of the Nassau Suffolk School budget and slate of officers and executive committee members for 2020-2021. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Nikowitz.
Aye.
This is normally done at a Nassau Suffolk School Board Association meeting, usually a dinner meeting, but since we cannot gather those kind of groups, we're voting on the Nassau Suffolk School Board Association proposed budget today. It's a budget of $696,000. So it's a fair, and then there are various officers that we are appointing and members of Suffolk County and Nassau County. Any questions? Any opposed? Oh, sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Item number 5 is a budget transfer request. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Joyner and Ms. DiGaetano. Dr. Carter?
Absolutely. The next 2 budget transfer requests you'll see, I believe you do Chromebooks for the first one, the boiler, is that what we're doing? In what happens is when we get to this time of year and we're trying to use those savings we talked about that we garnered this year to purchase things for next year, to spend down that side of the budget and make ends meet, what'll happen is whatever code, whatever account or category that money's in, we just need to ask your permission because we have to be transparent to you and to the public and say $1 million or $300,000 or whatever that number is in each case of money that was previously in the transportation budget, for example, now is going to be set to Chromebooks. We originally asked you and the public for permission to
Chromebooks for Julian's
do
student bus.
do buses for those, with you to purchase buses with those funds. So if we're going to purchase Chromebooks with them, it's our responsibility to ask you and us to have a transparent look for the year. So you'll see that in both these cases.
Any questions on the first budget transfer? Chromebooks?
Yeah. Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Alright, that is very cool. Even more so now, but I think a great addition to
I
our
agree.
district. Alright, next budget transfer request, motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Bronson, Mr. Joyner, and Mr. Nikowitz. Dr. Bernard, this is the budget transfer for the Maplewood boiler replacement. Any questions from the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Alright. Item number 7 is the approval of a resolution for a memorandum of agreement with the South Huntington Teachers Association. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Bronson and Mr. Joyner. This is a resolution to approve an agreement with the South Huntington Teachers Association to extend the notice provision associated with eligibility for terminal leave and authorize the board president to execute such an agreement. In English, this extends the time period for teachers to put in retirement.
Yes, in chatting with our association president, we've been very blessed with this whole crisis, as other districts are battling on all fronts with all their bargaining units, with their board, with their administrators. And we kind of have a real good symbiotic relationship with our units, and one of the individuals who's been helping us from top to bottom, try to get through things on a daily basis, and really, some real pro-student, pro-community ideas has been Dennis Callahan. And so we chatted with Dennis about what happens is when you're going to retire, so districts can plan. They kind of ask you, they pick a date. It's different in most districts, but usually around February 1st, where they say, look, if you're going to retire and get whatever benefits come with retiring from the school district, if you're going to retire and get some of those upfront benefits, those things that we let you as a district have, whether it's a sick day reimbursement, whatever it is, you got to tell us by February 1st so we can budget for next year. Well, in this case, due to the pandemic, we thought it would behoove the district to see if some of our teachers who might be ready to go, would choose to go now, being given the circumstance in the world, and it would behoove a staff member who might, for whatever their reason at this point in their life, have seen dynamics change a little bit. And in coming together, we've asked the Board of Education with their blessing to extend the February retirement date. I believe we said to the middle of June 15th. To the middle of June 15th, to let people chat with their families a little bit, and then to still give us some idea in time on how we might be able to use that to garner some savings. It's a double-edged sword. There is absolutely no substitute for experience. So as a person who knows, as a person who's kind of at that age, I know that experience is a blessing, and experience, and so at the same point, we get it, and we certainly would never want anyone out. I always like to say that, it's good for someone's family, and it saves the district some money, great. And if they choose to be with us and take care of our kids with their experience, that's wonderful too. So it's a delicate balance, and I never want to sound disrespectful when I'm recommending a retirement deadline extension, because we value everyone who's with us, but we also understand the financial situation.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye. Alright.
Any opposed? Carries. Item number 8 is a resolution regarding the last day of school for the 2019-2020 school year. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Ms. O'Hara, Mr. Joyner, and Ms. DiGitano. So, the Board of Education usually adopts the calendar for the school year around March of each year. When we adopted it, we had the last day of schools as June 26th of 2020. However, as you know, the governor ordered us to teach through the spring recess, which was for a total of 6 or 7 days. And as a result, we are now, apparently based on the governor's latest executive order dealing with education, allowed to change our end date of school from the 26th of June to the 16th of June, with June 17th being a staff instructional day. So that's as a result of the virtual teaching during the spring break, and works out nicely because if we didn't get relief from this, we would have had to pay extra money for the teaching days that we had, as well as the other staff days. So this will be revenue neutral for us. Board, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item number 9 are recommendations for placement of the students by the Committee on Special Education, dates listed in February, March, April, and May. Motion to discuss. Ms. Carey, seconded by Mr. Nickowitz and Mr. Bronson and Ms. DiGitano. Any questions from the board on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Speaking of this, Ms. Portillo, how are these conferences happening now?
All the CPSE and CEC conferences are held teleconference, so mostly through Google Meet.
Okay.
The video, if the parent wants to participate via video, they're welcome to, but most of them have been just via telephone, and the committee members have been on video.
Okay. So they're continuing as normal, no backlog or?
No, we have an awesome team between Dr. Kripichet, Ms. Quinlan, and the clerical support staff back in Student Services. They transferred all of the paper documents electronically, And so it's been moving quite seamlessly.
Excellent. Information and reports are listed. Our next future board meetings are listed. The rest of the meetings for the year are June 1st and June 17th, June 9th being budget date, but we will not certify the election results until the 17th. On June 1st, we have the public hearing of the budget and our special presentation of the principals list. And then June 17th, we will certify the election results. We will recognize this year's retirees and tenure recipients, and our students that are bound for the military. Very special ceremonies. Comments by board members?
I just want to take the opportunity once again to thank everybody in our district, including our wonderful administrators and teachers, to see our schools functioning the way they are and the sacrifices they've all made. It's been pretty incredible to watch, but there has been, as far as I'm concerned from a school board member, just an outpouring of support and all hands on deck. And once again, I want to thank our teachers union and our other unions as well for all of their incredible efforts on behalf of our children and our district. They've made it very easy on us to try to navigate this because we've all been swimming in the same direction. And it's greatly appreciated as far as I'm concerned, and I'm sure the rest of the board members are.
I agree.
Thank you, Ms. Nichols. Any other comments? I'd just like to recognize Lou Savarese and Thomas Ciravolo. I'm not sure how people are viewing this at home, but today's setup was really complicated from a technological perspective. We're sitting here with sound equipment and 2 laptops and 2 smart boards, and we have all of our board members, with the exception of Ms. Carey and myself, at home participating on Zoom with beautiful Southampton background behind them. So this was it looks seamless, but I'm sure was a lot of stress and worry and came up with.
To let you know where it started, Mr. Chiappetta, I was so nervous over the technology piece that when this discussion started last week, I had a dry erase board and a marker, and I was going to have them film that, and they kind of convinced me that it could be done a different way. So just so you know where it evolved from my fear of technology.
I'm really happy to be able to experience life as Max Headroom for tonight.
Taking it back.
It's pretty cool, Max Headroom.
Nice haircut.
Thank you.
Voice of the residents. Looks like any resident comments? Okay. With that, we will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion
Ms.
to adjourn.
Carey, seconded by Mr. Joyner. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank
All
you all.
opposed? All right.